right, WALN, the Party Channel. My name is Ned Richards. It is Street Corner Doo-Wop Thursday night, right up until 11 o'clock. And as I've been telling everybody all day on Facebook and tonight here in the chat room, a true icon in the doo-wop industry, a true icon in the musical industry. It doesn't matter either way. This man has been around a long time, and hopefully he will remain around a long time. It is my pleasure, it is my honor, and I'm very humbled to bring this gentleman on my show tonight, and a true icon, Mr. Herb Cox. How are you doing, my friend?
Oh, Ned, I feel great, especially after that wonderful introduction you gave me. You'd make my head get fatter.
Oh, that's all right, because you know what? It's all the truth, Herb. You are a true icon, and there's no doubt about it.
We've been at this for a long time. We're having a great time, and it's been a good career for us. It's been a long career for us, which I'm sure you know about that. We've been around for a long time, and so I just think it's blessed to have so many good opportunities to meet people like you who help to keep the music alive, and that's a main factor.
Let's go back to your early days.
Sure.
When did the group start? As the Cleftones, of course, you were called something else back in 1952, correct?
Well, we were youngsters when we started out, and we didn't have a clear name, that we could, we were in the process of deciding what we were going to be called. Everybody was calling, in those days, somebody was a car, a Cadillac, or an Escalade or something in those days. But for some reason, we ended up calling ourselves the Cleftones, and that seemed to have been fine.
And when you started, what were the ages of you and your group at that time?
Well, the guys in the Cleftones, we were all roughly at about the same age. William McLean, who was the founder of the group, he was a little bit older than the rest of us, and I think Buzzy McLean, we all called him Buzzy, but he was 18, and he was really sort of the leader of the group.
When you go back to those days, you guys were still in high school, right?
Yeah, well, we were in high school all together. That's how we came together. I was on the baseball team, and and I loved to play baseball. But then I found out that if we go on the handball court in the afternoon and go over by the wall where you had this great echo, plus the girls would come and hang out and listen to us sing. So attract a little attention in those days.
When you were back in those days, now you guys were on the street corner, right?
Basically, yes.
What was it like? I mean, I ask this to all the groups or the men that call in. What was it like? But you know what? Everybody seems to have a different story. And what was your story all about on those days on the street corner?
Well, again, I'd have to start back at Jamaica High School, where we were all students together there. It was William McLean, as I mentioned before, Berman Patterson, Charles James, and Warren Corbin, who was our bass singer, and myself, Herb Cox. I was the third person in that group. The original founders of that were William McLean and to my knowledge, Charlie James. I was to my knowledge, I was the third one in. Berman joined soon after, and Warren Corbin was there. So that's how we were all happy. It was great that we were all going to high school together, and we were in a high school election, for officers in the school itself. And we came on and we took some songs and gave them the actual names of the, renamed everything. So we made songs that were for a re-election of some kind of thing like that. But we turned it into our own election within the school, and we weren't allowed to sing rock and roll in school. But we changed the songs around, so it worked out pretty good. Like we had a song. Remember G Records? Remember that?
Oh, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So that song went, oh, 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 gee, my, oh, me. So we changed that around because they didn't want us to sing rock and roll in the high school auditorium. So we came and did this thing, and we did, oh, 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 gee, vote for W-I-N-D. My, oh me. Hey, somebody's got me there with that.
I guess so, and it's not me, that's for sure.
Oh, I think I know who that is. That must be my buddy Petey.
Oh, okay.
The line.
Definitely. I was wondering what that was all about there.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So when you had your first record,
Yes.
what grade were you in at that time?
Well, we were all in our last year and in high school, and we're closing in on it. We hadn't graduated, but we had the good opportunity to. We had some good luck. Our basketball team that year won the local honors for New York, and some great basketball players came out of that as well. And but it gave us some little exposure. They got a nice, beautiful trophy, and they said, well, we couldn't have done it without, the guys at Cleftones always, sang songs and it perked us up. That wasn't quite true, but we took that,
There you go.
But that's how we were heard by people, and we got a lot of offers to do dates and shows local, at some of the local schools and other things, and that was great for us at first, and then suddenly, before we do it, we were on our way going downtown to the music area, and we were auditioning for people. We had auditioned for about 5 or 6 different companies, and finally we went in, and George Goldner from Rama Records in those days, George, he loved us right away, and he signed us to a contract, and that's how we began our career.
What was it like when you finally heard your own record on the radio?
It's amazing because we got a call finally after the record was released. We got some calls from the people at the studio saying, look, they're going to play your records on WINS radio tonight. And I said, oh, boy. So we all gathered around the radio at Buzzy's house, and sure enough, they played our first song. And it was like magic for us, hearing ourselves back, on the radio. First time we'd ever been on the radio. So that was a major lift up for us, and that got us off and gave us a little confidence that maybe, hey, we might have some talent in writing songs or creating these songs and putting them together. And I had always written songs, even when I was a youngster in Ohio. My grandmother was very much on top of me to learn how to read and write musical notes, because she was in a gospel choir, and all that was part of her life, and she passed a lot of that on to me. And thank God some of it worked out, and it basically was the beginning of me writing songs.
Was your parents and your family, were they really rather supportive of you at that particular time in your life?
Well, our family was was very supportive, but my dad was in the military. He was fighting in the war at that time, and my grandfather, who was sort of my second father,
right,
was leading me around, and he took me everywhere with him, and he gave me a good idea of what the world was like and what we could do out there, and he took me to various places that I never saw. And I didn't know that my grandfather had a lot of clout, but he had won some medals, believe it or not, fighting before World War I.
Wow.
World War I. It was a troop of black military up in Columbus. They were sent over like a detachment. I don't know how many men it was. It couldn't have been more than 100 or 2. But they went over there, and they all came back with medals for honor for helping the French hold back at that time the Germans.
Wow.
And so when he came back to New York, when my grandfather came back home, he was like a star, and so they had a parade in downtown Cincinnati, and they introduced us out in Crosby Field where the Cincinnati Reds play. I was a Cincinnati Reds fan because I grew up there, and all this was part of what helped me, I think, to grow up, to understand that there's things outside of where you live, that you can make part of your life. So that's what happened. So my grandfather got to be well known. He got on the radio from time to time. How he did it, I don't know, because he wasn't a movie star, but he was a smart man, and he had served his country well. He had to get a plate put in his head way back then, but it worked, and he lived with it the rest of his life. He had a very prosperous life and did well and raised all of us pretty well.
Wow, that's an amazing story. It really is. And
all that happened while we were in Ohio, but ultimately my mom moved to New York in anticipation of my father coming back to New York, and he got stuck over there longer, so we ended up staying in New York a lot longer, and I was not a big fan of New York, being in Cincinnati, you know. So, but I met all these great guys. That's where I met Buzzy and Charlie James and Warren Corbin and Patterson as well. And going to the same school, this worked out really fine for us.
Wow, it's totally amazing. You know,
yeah, you never know.
Beautiful part of your family history. I'm sure you're very, very proud of that. And of course we are as well. And we certainly do appreciate all his efforts, your father's efforts, and all of that. At what age did you say to yourself, Herb, I am going to be a rock and roll singer one day?
Well, I don't know if I put it quite that way, but I was on a subway coming in from doing a little local show, and I was on the subway, and you know when you're a kid, you everything becomes part of what your dream is, and that for me was music. And I was sitting on the subway now, riding back to Queens. We lived there. This has been in New York. I was sitting there, and I'm listening to the chatter of the tracks, you know, like that. And I said, yeah, diddle little little.
Is that the beginning of that song?
Genesis of that song.
Wow.
That's correct.
Subway tracks to a #1 hit.
That's right.
Absolutely amazing, isn't that? Wow. And then I guess he is playing that, isn't he?
Indeed.
So we go on a little further than that, and now we start touring. And where are some of the places? Well, before that, here's a question I want to ask you. And before we get into your days that you started touring and everything, was there a particular person in the music industry that you kind of thought as a role model?
Well, yeah, that's a very good question. We were fortunate to have several people who stepped up for us and who were really good people. My God, here I can't think of the gentleman's name because he's passed away. But he wrote the song "Drown in My Own Tears." I don't know if you remember that song.
What was the name of that one?
"Drown in My Own Tears."
Yes.
Little Willie John made the.
Yes, he did.
"Drown in My Own Tears."
That's right. And that was Little Willie John that...
Willie John. But
yeah.
that song was written by the gentleman who worked in Ohio at a radio station, and he wrote that song for Little Willie John. And I don't know if you know the history of that. It started off like a real hot record, but Tennessee Ernie Ford covered it in a way that was very similar. So he never got the full nationwide recognition because the company that he was with was not that big. But Henry Glover taught me a lot of lessons. He says, Herbie, you know, you write songs all the time. Write them down, and you get. And he lived in Long Island. I lived in Long Island at that time. So he said, you know, come over to my house and sit down on the keyboard with you, and I'll work with you on these songs. And that helped me write a lot of songs like "Can't We Be Sweethearts" and things like that I wrote later on, and other songs that I collaborated with the other guys in the group because the guys were talented too, and so they did some things. But I had the good fortune of having a lot of hits out of those songs, and that started me to thinking, no, maybe I have some talent to write. And I went back and called my grandfather, as I always would, and he encouraged me, and so did my grandmother. Said, you know, go for it. And they showed me a lot about reading charts, etc. a lot of which I've forgotten today, but I sure used them back in those days. But we used to get together and create songs, and another place where we had, where if we weren't sure if it was good, Buzzy McLean, which I mentioned to you before, he was the founder of the group. Now, his mother owned a beauty parlor in the front of their house, and they'd have all these women in there, and we'd be in the back room singing. And they used to say, open the door, let's hear these guys sing. So that was our first audience like that. We used to go out and the women would say, they would clap for their hair done while they're getting their hair done.
Nothing wrong with that. And how many thousands more after that clap for you guys?
Oh, yeah. Well, it encouraged us. And, you know, when other people said, hey, that sounds good, you know, that gives you some more energy to keep going. And that's what spurred us all. All of us were trying to write songs. I wrote quite a few, and so did the other guys in the group.
Did you ever write songs for other particular groups or other single performing artists?
No, not really. Not really. At one point in time, later, much later in our career, we got involved with and trying to work with Laverne Baker, because she was a friend of ours too. After we got out on the road, we suddenly met all of these other people, like Bobby Lewis, you know, and people like that, and all of the greats from that era, Jackie Wilson, people like that. But the person who stuck on us was Laverne. She used to call us the bad little boys, you know, because we were so relatively young. And but she was she always told us, stay away from this, don't go near drinking and all. And we didn't do that, you know, anyway. But she was like a mama watch over us, you know, and she got to know our parents well, and her and my aunt became really close friends in New York, and so she was a good person to have around. She had her own problems, but she did well by us. And another person, like I mentioned to you briefly, was Bobby Lewis, who was very nice with us, helped us with our charts in the early days, and many others who I could think. We had a lot of help along the line.
You're going to be performing with him once again, right?
Oh, yeah. We'll be out in Las Vegas with Bobby, and I'm just anxious to be doing another show with him. And, you know, he's had some health issues, but he could still sing. His chops are still good. And I think most of the people know that he is legally blind, and he has to wear glasses. But, boy, could he still sing.
You know what? The good man upstairs certainly does take care of those that have given their life to entertaining people and making people happy, even though the health issues do crop up, and they crop up with all of us eventually at one time or another.
Up with you.
And he's able to do that, and you know, wow, an amazing voice. And you were talking about Laverne Baker, and I Cried a Tear.
She was great. She is a great singer. One year we went with Laverne to England. This is several years after she came. Believe it or not, for a while we managed her. We managed her career. I couldn't manage myself in those days. but I tried my best. We all tried our best. But we helped her get some dates over in England. And she went over there and she did very well. She sang at the same place where the Beatles made their debut over there. And a small place, but probably the hottest place in the UK at that time. Beatles were red hot. But the Beatles were on their way trying to come back here, which they did, and took the U.S. by storm.
Yes, they did.
But we never got to work with them directly, except for a couple of run-ins with a few of them from time to time. They were always very complimentary and said, hey, you know, we know all your songs and stuff like that. So that's comforting to see. You go to a foreign country and people know your songs, and that's very uplifting.
When you first started touring, and what was it like? You're looking at not people in a beauty parlor, but you're looking at quite a few more. What was it like your very first time that you went on stage, and do you remember some of the groups that were also on stage with you?
Oh, goodness. Well, we used to go on these really long tours. We'd be out for 3-4 months at a time and on buses. So you had to be a kid and young to be crazy enough to do that, to live on a bus for 3 months. But we did it, and we enjoyed ourselves. We had a good time, but it wore you out. You had to have a lot of energy. And but we learned a lot. We got to travel for the first time. We went to Texas. We went down to Lubbock, Texas, and met some people down there. We got to know a couple of the really great performers from down that way, and they were great guys. We used to get together on the bus. And they would ask us, "How did you guys figure that song out?" And we'd ask, "How did you figure yours out?" You know, because everybody had their. This is Buddy Holly and the Crickets on that show, for instance. In the same bus, we traveled around. It was kind of rough, but it was enlightening as far as I was concerned about seeing what the country was about and how many opportunities there were for people if you just take a shot at it and go for what you believed in.
Back in the early days, and you know, sometimes I really hate to ask a question like this.
Sure.
Because today it's totally different. But what was it like trying to break in? And the reason I'm going to ask you this, because Lloyd Price and I talked about this so often. How was it difficult as a black group to break that barrier?
Well, I could tell you a couple of stories about it, because we were first of all, we were just happy to be out on the road singing, and by that time this was our second or third year, and we'd had a record label, and we were pretty well established with the company that we were with, and so we felt pretty comfortable about ourselves, but we had not really gone across the U.S. We had worked a little bit in L.A., worked a lot in Chicago, and occasionally in Ohio, etc. And of course, in the Northeast, New York, and upstate New York, and all that stuff, Philly, and all that. We covered all that. But then when we started going south, it's a different world. Now, I should have known better because I was born in Cincinnati, which is really, at that time when I was born and grew up there, that was a southern town. So there was a lot of issues about racial problems, and you can't go here, and you go into the bus place to go to the bathroom, you couldn't go in if you were black. So, you missed out from that. I don't remember those days.
Oh, yeah.
but you have to live it. It's sort of funny now. It wasn't funny at that time.
No, it wasn't.
You live and learn, and it made me know that you had to develop another crust, you know, to protect yourself. And I don't mean physically protect yourself, but mentally protect yourself.
Right.
And not to be minimized by people who wrong things, but you know, they didn't like what we did, or etc. Well, you had plenty of those run-ins, but over the years, here's the great thing about this country, I think, or one of the great things. We used to sing, and they used to try to, we go in the South, they wanted us to sing for a black school and then for a white school, which is silly. The kids don't care, they just like the music, you know. So we were on a show maybe a year or two after that. We were out with the Drifters, and we had such a situation where they segregated the audience, and that's the way it was. They had blacks in one area and white people in the other area, and there was many more white people than black people there. And but I'll never forget this. The Drifters were on. Good friends of mine, Charlie Thomas and his group, and people kept interfering with the Drifters. The police kept interfering with the Drifters on stage. And Charlie Thomas, I'll never forget that. He starts singing, said, "Oh, policeman, please leave these people alone." You know, it just made it more. It's funny now. It wasn't funny then, but it almost caused a riot. But the kids took over, and the kids were sitting anywhere they wanted to, and they tried to segregate the seating, but the kids just went and got near the seats, you know. and that sort of broke that thing in that type of attitude in that place.
Wow.
I'll never forget that. It was scary because I thought, we might be in danger or something, but nothing happened. But the people who used to book us for those shows, the Ringling Brothers and Barnum Bailey Circus, owned those buses. And they said, look, if you want us to have the circus down here, you don't fool around with our people when we bring them down there to perform. And that's what I believe broke the chain on segregation.
Oh, that...
Black, white, it didn't matter. We all got along good. We got along good with, you name it, Furlan, Husky, any of the, any of the white groups we got along with well. While we were on the road, we all had a good time.
How was it, now that we got that point across here in the United States here, how was your reception back in the days when you went to England? How did they treat you there at that particular time?
It was phenomenal. When we got to England, of course, the Beatles had really paved the way. In my opinion, they had, and because they were so popular in the UK, and then they came here. While they were coming here, we were going back over there. So we got several weeks over there, and we had terrific reception. And that was the beginning of a long and prosperous relationship I had with the young promoter over there, who's now a big-time promoter in Las Vegas, good friend of mine. In fact, we're working there for him in about another month and a half. And so we got to know, that you can go places where the same kind of bias. There was no such thing as segregated seating or anything there. And so it made you wonder, what's wrong with our country? What's wrong with us? Why can't we do like everybody else is doing? Or at least that's what the thought was. But the audience was so they didn't care about, whether you were black or white or green or whatever, just so you could sing the song so they could dance. That's all they cared about, really.
Did you go to any other countries while you were over there, or just England?
No, we were in Spain twice. We've been to that, 3 Spain. We greeted the same way there. Very nice audiences. But our most surprising one, I think, out of all those trips, we only went there twice, was to Italy. We worked in one of the old, I guess it was where they used to have the, where they put the slaves in there and they killed one another or whatever it was.
Wow.
Old historical place. We went there, seated 2,000 people. They sold it out. And you might know this. You mentioned Lloyd Price, I think, before.
Yes, I did. Yes.
Well, we went there with Lloyd about 5 years ago to England, just us and Lloyd and a girls group. Sold out every night. And over 2,000 people there singing the songs. I'm like flabbergasted. They're singing diddle before we can start the songs. They know it, but that's a compliment. They knew the songs and they were having good fun. They were standing up and dancing, and so music is an international. To me, it's something that we all need to see that we're just people, and we're all the same, and we all can enjoy mostly the same things. And as long as you're decent people, that's all that really counts, as far as I'm concerned. So over there, it was wonderful. I was really impressed with the way they treated us and took us out to dinner later. And oh man, I ate so much spaghetti I thought I was going to string me or something.
Well, I guess
it was great. The people were terrific to us over there.
Wow, I always like to ask that question for the simple reason, of course, they're in a totally different language.
Oh yeah.
But yet, as you said, music is the universal language. It doesn't matter.
It is the link, no question about it.
Now, as you went on in your career, you had so many hit songs, and if I may ask you this question, and you've had quite a few hits, is there, or what song do you particularly, out of all your hits, like to perform the most?
Wow, that's hard. First of all, I'm very protective of the songs that I wrote, and a lot of those songs I wrote, the Heart and Soul song, I wrote that, and many others. One of them that always registers with me is "Little Girl of Mine." Diddle, little, little, little,
Yeah.
That's way back in the days of doo-wop, as they used to call it, you know. But I used to get off on the train going to my home, and somebody would walk up and say, "Hey, I know you." Did a little, yeah. They didn't know my name, but they knew us from seeing us on stage someplace, or in the theaters at the Apollo Theater, or one of the theaters in Brooklyn, somewhere like that. And later on, we were fortunate enough to perform quite a bit in Madison Square Garden for about 4 years off and on. We've had a good run at it. We've been around the country a lot. We've been to Canada 2 or 3 times. So we've been at this a long time. Now this is I shouldn't tell people because I keep lying about my age. I can't say I'm 28 anymore.
Well,
that wouldn't be true, would it?
But let me tell you this, and here's something I have noticed throughout, talking to people about these groups. These people saw you back in the day, okay?
Yeah.
They saw you back in the day, but when they never seem to say, you guys grew up and got older too.
Yes, that's true.
They look at you guys as the, forever teenage groups.
Well, we're all getting a little thin and gray in the hair, all of us, as we get older. But I think it's, to me, other than disliking music and the business of music and the camaraderie of that, and, if we ever did a nice piece of music, all that's great. But the real thing is you get close to people and you get to know people. And that's been one of the best things that I can say about having had this experience. It's commonplace. We were coming back from Las Vegas, and this couple came over and sat near me, and where my wife was, and he said, "Didn't I see you on the stage last night?" There's an elderly white man and his wife, nice lady, and she said, "Yeah, we saw you. Wasn't that you?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, was it okay?" She said, "It was great. We enjoyed it." I said, "I'm surprised you came out to see this show." She said, "I wouldn't miss. This is the only kind of show I want to hear the old rock and roll."
Oh yeah.
And that's great to hear, and we had such a great talk, and now that's another family that we're close to. They call periodically, "Herb, when are you going to be out this way?" Or and. So it's good to have the good relationships with people like that. What it shows is that you can get along with all people as long as you're willing to meet everybody, halfway.
Exactly, and I truly do believe that. Now, as you've said, you've been around. You've gone to many concerts.
Oh yeah.
The latest concerts. Let's go back maybe 5, 10 years ago or so. Do you see? When you look in the audience, do you see a lot more younger people coming to watch your concerts along with some of the other groups?
Yes. Yeah, there's clearly a borderline. The young people are more likely to be drawn to songs where they can dance and get physical, and that's great. Nothing wrong with that. But I look at some of the older people, and I recognize them from before when they were in their middle 20s or 30s or something. And I remember them, and it's great to see the gentleman sitting there with his wife, hugging his wife, and they're remembering the good old days. That's good. That's good for your heart, and for and you know what? At those shows, there's always a couple of knuckleheads someplace, but as a rule, the people are really, really nice to each other, get along with each other, they enjoy the music, they want to sign an autograph or, something like that. That's great. So I just feel that this has been a wonderful business that that the Cleftones have been involved with for all these years. I think it's been terrific.
One question I want to ask you. Now, you've been with so many different singers.
Oh boy.
Has Herb Cox ever wanted to do, outside of the Cleftones, does Herb Cox ever wanted to do a duet with somebody?
That's a funny thing you mentioned that. I'm wrestling with that right now.
Seriously, good.
Excuse me. Yes, but what happened is that years ago I was working on a song with the group, and the song was called "When I Found You." It seemed a little corny at the time, and the other guys weren't too interested in it. I was trying to show them how the song went. But two of the guys were leaving the group, and one of the guys got ill and had to leave the group. And that changed the chemistry of the group. We had new people come in, and we picked up. But I left that song alone for about 5 years. About a year ago, I got a letter from one of the promoters. Said, "Herb, what are you doing with this song? You still got it just laying here. You haven't done anything with it." And I said, "What song?" I'd forgotten all about it. He said, "This When I Found You song." And I said, "Wow, okay." I looked back and went back through my notes and saw this song, and the song is pretty darn good. Now, how was I missing this? But I guess I was preoccupied with just trying to keep the group together, and things like that. And so that's something I want to do. I want to make another album. I hope I can get it done by the end of this year. And some new songs from the Cleftones, which we're ready to do now. Our current group of Cleftones, I think, are really good guys. They work really hard, and they're all talented, and they're just good people to work with. So I'm enjoying this. I'm getting older, but I'm having fun.
Could it be Herb Cox along with Lady Gaga?
That could be dangerous.
Oh, I don't know. Tony Bennett seemed to have gotten away with it pretty good.
Well, Tony may know some stuff that I don't know, I'm sure.
Oh, you know what? I think with your voice and another lady singer, I really feel you guys could excel without any doubt in my mind.
You're making me think about this with Lady Gaga.
Well, there you go,
Yeah, she's a real star in her own right, so,
She is. And,
no doubt about it. No question about it.
But, it's so good that, you're thinking of or planning on doing another set of songs, a new CD.
Oh yeah. I don't imagine myself doing this for another, say, 6 or 7 years, because we're getting up in age, and there's other things to do. I have children graduating from college and stuff like that, and help them get through school and all that stuff. I'm a real stickler for that, trying to help all the kids
right.
to get everything that they need and to be prosperous in life. And I've been pretty successful at it. I'm not bragging, but I've done okay. I brought them all along. They're good kids. None of them have been in any serious trouble or act like idiots every now and then, like all.
I think we all did back in the day.
I know I did. So here I am trying to chastise them. I was one of those little hotheads, too.
There you go.
So we all had our run at it, but I think what set this more than anything else for us was our days at Jamaica High School, where we came together and just as 5 young guys, and we all wanted to be singers, and we sang together and sang at a couple of the things for the school itself, and they took us on. We got to sing in Madison Square Garden, a lot of places, and that's how we sort of got the energy that maybe we had something. And so we started, we had a friend of ours, his name is David Rolnick, young Italian guy who was with us. And Dave, now the Cleftones were 5 black young men.
Right.
And Dave used to always hang out with us. he wanted to play on the basketball team. He was the world's worst basketball player. He'd pass it to the other guys on the team, But he was a great guy, so he was, he's one of our pals. But what he liked to do is that we found that we could go on the handball court when we were youngsters at Jamaica High School, and we found out if we went over by the handball court, and if we sang up against that wall, we got a reverb off that, like an echo. Mm-hmm. Pretty cool. So we thought that was great because, girls would come over and listen to us sing, pay attention, as otherwise no one paid any attention to us. So, but we used to gather a little crowd about us, and that burgeoned out to several big things. A couple of newspapers, local newspapers, Long Island Press in Long Island, they came out to interview us, and we were on with them, and that was good, and they got us into a lot of other things, at the Madison Square Garden and things like that, to come on to do cameos. This is before we made any hit records. But this young fellow who said, look, if I can't sing with you, let me be the manager of the group. We said, sing, but don't sing, because he couldn't sing.
Poor guy couldn't play basketball or sing.
No, he's worse at basketball than singing. But he wanted to hang out with us, and so he was always with us wherever we went. But let me tell you, we laughed at him, and he was always the guy. He was always in trouble. His parents were always up there because he didn't come to school all the time, and I don't know what his problems were at home. But David Rolnick turned out to be the guy who he got us together, took us downtown to about 4 different agents, and we tried out, got to George Goldner, and he said, I like it, I like you guys, and he signed us. And David had got that done, not us, he did. He worked hard at it, and he was with us for 6 years. Then he left. He worked for the company for a long time, then went out on his own. Not sure where David is now, but, we lost track of him. But a great guy. We had a lot of fun together.
Well, the main thing is the memories, and that's what it's all about. Guys coming together, doing what you did. Of all the places you ever performed, where is your most favorite place?
Oh, boy, that's hard. I can tell you the place that we feared the most.
Okay, let's go with the place that you feared the most. It had to be down south, right?
No. Right in New York, the Apollo Theater in Harlem.
Why would you be feared to go there? Is it more intimidation because the Apollo Theater,
yes,
a fabulous place for all, not only black singers, but
yes,
but some white singers broke that barrier. Why would you say that would be the most feared place?
Well, I think we were afraid that we weren't ready to go there. That we weren't quite. Look, we were on with a lot of the great singers in those times. And so to come on with those people, I remember we were going to the rehearsal and we had the uniforms that for the day before we hung them up in the room, and the guy said, "What is this stuff here? You're not going to wear that stuff on stage, are you?" We thought it was pretty sharp, but it was tacky stuff. We went out and bought all new things.
Wow.
So, but we tried to step up to that. But we learned a lot at the Apollo Theater. We got there. We were nervous as all get out, but we got past it, and the audience accepted us, and we ended up working at the Apollo one time for I think it was eight weeks in a row, and we used to run shows that long. And one of the other people who was nice to us there was Laverne Baker. Who was very nice to us, and another person who was helpful to us in our career is Bobby Lewis, Torsten Turner and Bobby Lewis. Mm-hmm. So, so we were helped by a lot of good people. But I think the key is that we were young guys. We were not into drugs or anything like that, or crime or anything like that. And so we came off as basically clean-cut kids, And
you still are.
I'm sorry?
You still are.
Well, I think so. I think we have a nice bunch of guys, and not just the guys who are in the group, but friends and fans. We have all kinds of fans. I'm proud of that. Black, white, young, old, doesn't matter. People like the music. I get calls all the time, for people who I like, who I've known down through the years. And that's nice to hear from them every now and then. Where are you guys going to be in Chicago or something like that? So I always try to tell them. So it's a wonderful life if you can keep it going, and I'm trying to keep it going a couple more years.
Don't ever stop.
Oh, I'm trying hard not to.
Don't ever stop, because you know what? You will have a fan base for a very, very long time. As long as myself, J.D. Ross is here, we keep this music alive. And we keep it going. And I think our generation, now I know you're a few years older than me, our generation, and I keep saying this, is going to stay younger.
I think so.
For a long time because of the music. And I've often said this.
Exactly right. It stretches it out.
It really does. And the music that we grew up with, Little Girl of Mine, Heart and Soul, so many others, Why Do You Do Me Like You Do? And see, I got it right this time. And, so many other songs, that we love to hear, we love to sing, and sing to it, and that keeps us younger. And I think you people that are out there performing these songs is going to keep you even younger.
Yeah, well, I've enjoyed the ride so far. It's been a great ride. We've been very fortunate. Good things and bad things. We lost two guys who passed away who were in our group over the years, Mm-hmm. But we were able to replace them with people who were really good guys who've been with us all the way to now.
How many original, besides yourself, Cleftones are there?
Right now, it's sort of, I hate to even say it like this, but I'm the only one of the original five now who are performing. Now, William Buzzy McLean, who I told you, where we used to go to his mother's house, where she had a beauty parlor, and we used to sing in the back room, and they used to say, open the door so we can hear you guys sing. That was our first audience. These women sitting around getting their hair curled and stuff. But they liked us, and they encouraged us. Oh, you boys sound nice. So that's good. Every youngster needs a push, when someone says, hey, you sound pretty good. And I think that gave us a little bit more encouragement, and we all worked hard at it. Buzzy McLean worked real hard to keep the group together a long time. He's just the type of guy who didn't like, the problems that he found in the South. He didn't want to go. He didn't want to perform there anymore, and he left the group. That changed the group dramatically because he was really the leader of the group, in my opinion. But he told me on the bus. He says, Herbie, he says, I'm going to quit. You have to take over the leadership of the group. I didn't know how to take over the leadership of a group.
That's a tough job, isn't it? Is it a really tough job?
I'm sorry?
Is it a really tough job being the leader of a group?
Oh, yes, it is. Yeah, because you got to deal with all the personalities and the egos and and one of the things that we said we didn't want any guys who were troublemakers in the group. No drug addicts, please.
Right.
We can't deal with it, man. No, I don't care what it does for you. Don't bring it to us, okay?
There you go.
So we had to do things like that, and over the years, but we've been blessed that we have a bunch of good guys. We lost some good ones. Tony Gaines sang with us. He was my cousin. He was with the Platters for a while when the Platters left. What was the guy, the lead singer in the Platters?
Clyde McPhatter?
No, not Clyde McPhatter. Can't think.
Pinckney.
No, not Eugene Pinckney either. I can't think of his name right now. I'm having a blackout, but you know him very well. He's the guy who did Only You, Harbor Lights, all those great songs by the Platters. And he left the group because he wanted more money as the lead singer, and they dumped him, and they kind of blacklisted him. He couldn't get a job hardly anywhere, and he turned to him an alcoholic and died.
Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah, it is. That's the sad part about it. He didn't know how to deal with his situation. I don't know if they were unfair to him or not, but he was making more money, but he wanted more. But he also had the problem of being a drinker, unfortunately.
Wow. Well, The only thing I can say is I'm glad you and your group stayed on the straight and narrow, and will continue that way, and performing all your great songs to keep us young.
Well, I thank you for thinking of us and having this conversation. I really do appreciate it, and it's our pleasure to be on with you anytime for you and the people who are keeping the music alive, and because that's what's doing it. You guys are, by keeping people aware of what's happening when there's shows and what have you. And I thought Pete was going to be on our line. Is he there?
Don't know. I wouldn't have.
Yeah, I'm here.
Pick up. Can I have Petey cut in here?
Sure.
Come on, Pete, get in here.
Well, I'm sure you would like to talk about the show that you are going to be in, our upcoming show that I'm putting on. It's May 9th down here at Boca Raton, Florida.
Okay.
And we're going to it's a fundraiser for the music department at Spanish River Community High School. And we're going to have some great groups. The Cleftones will be our headliner, the Mystics, who brought us Hush By.
George Golfo, yes.
Yes, the Passions, who brought us Just to Be With You.
Jimmy Gallagher.
Yes, Jimmy
Great
Gallagher.
lineup on this show. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Imaginations with Frank Mancuso.
Oh, yes.
And 2 surprise guests.
Uh-oh.
2 surprise guests.
Even
Yes.
we don't know who that is.
Well, I know Ned Richards is not one of them.
No.
So can you give us a hint?
Well, I will tell you that one of them gave us one of the greatest and most remembered hits in 1960. Big
I know
hit.
who that is. I won't say it, but go ahead.
He was on the promo records. Now, I can't say anything else. And our other surprise guest was a very big star starting in about 1959 and just kept on going, had about 15, 16 hits.
Wow.
So
Awesome. And that again is May 9th, correct?
this is May 9th at Boca Raton, Florida at Spanish River Community High School. And people can go online, look up Peter Lemongello Jr. Swingin' Soiree on Facebook or on Google, and you can find out all about how to buy tickets.
All righty. That is excellent. And we do have a lot of listeners down in that area. Very good radio personality, disc jockey down in Jupiter, Florida, Stevie Wonder, and I know he's tuned in tonight. And I'm sure, he'll pass the word along as well.
Yes, and tickets are $30 to $45, depending on what seat you select.
And for the entertainment that you will see at this performance, $30 or $40 or whatever it is nothing.
Well, not when you can get the memories, and the way Pete puts the show together very well. He works really hard at it. I'm so proud of Pete at his age, to be as alert and as knowledgeable as he is about music. It's amazing.
And I keep telling people, Herb, that, unfortunately, we talked about some of the people that have passed.
Yes.
And I urge the people on every one of my shows that when a group like the Cleftones or the Crests or anybody comes to your area, I suggest and I really push that you go see them. And it's not that I'm trying to jinx anybody or anything else. We're not promised tomorrow. So if there is a group that's going to be within your area, go see them.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. And
That's what this is about, keeping the music alive. We're not trying to, break the bank for anyone. We want people to be able to afford to come out and enjoy all these wonderful acts and also raise some money for Spanish River High School.
Excellent. All righty. Well, Herb, I'll tell you what, we're going to try the push that for you. And of course, I wish you the best, Herb. I wish you all the best health.
Thank Pete and his family. They're working hard at this. Pete is really working hard. And he's burning my ear off every day.
There you go.
Yeah, he's a great young man.
All righty. Well, you know, I wish success for that endeavor, and I really do. And I'm pretty positive you'll have a nice turnout. There's no doubt about it.
I think so. Thank you for having us on too.
All right, Herb. Take care. God bless. Stay safe, my friend, and keep the songs going.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having us on.
And when you release that new CD, I want you back on here, and we'll talk about it.
I'll send you one of the first few ones that I get done with. I've been working on this for years, and I realized what a good song it was, and I see what I have to do with it now. So that's my calling here over the next few months to finish this up and to come out with a new recording.
There you go. And I would appreciate it, and I'll play it here for you, and we'll talk about it.
Fantastic.
All right, Herb.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time.
Okay. Petey, thanks a lot, buddy.
No problem.
Thank you there. Bye-bye. See you, Herb.